See your age mates dancing at their wedding. My mother had said only 2 months earlier. And here you are, still waiting for love that will never come. Maybe that's why I rushed into Raymond's arms. Maybe that's why I ignored every whisper that told me his smile was a mask. The first slap didn't sting my cheek as much as it shattered my heart. It was the kind of silence that follows a betrayal you never thought possible, the silence of a forest swallowing your scream. Tonight was supposed to be the beginning of forever. The moon hovered above the misty forest like a pale witness, watching the white car crawl to a stop on the dirt road. My red gown, the same one I had sworn to keep spotless, was now smeared with mud. My wrists burned where the rope bit into them. Raymond's breath smelled of whiskey as he leaned close enough for me to feel the lie in his heartbeat. "Get out," he said softly, almost tenderly. "It's over, Lara. Over." My voice cracked. "Ray, please, we just exchanged vows." He smirked, that familiar curve of arrogance that once felt like charm. "The vows were for her father's money. You're too naive to see that." He pushed me out of the car. My knees hit the cold ground. Gravel tore my skin. Before I could rise, the engine roared, headlights flared, and then darkness swallowed him whole. I screamed his name until the forest answered back with echoes. Somewhere far off, a night bird called, the kind that only sings when death is close. The air reeked of rain and old leaves. I struggled against the rope, tears cutting lines through my foundation. My stomach clenched, not from hunger, but from the fragile life growing inside me. Our child. I pressed my back to a tree, forcing slow breaths. "Think, Lara. Think." The wind hissed between branches, 1,000 whispers blending into one warning. "You're not alone." A twig snapped. Then another. "Ray," I whispered. Silence answered. The darkness moved. Eyes, yellow, unblinking, flashed between the bushes. One pair. Then 3. Then 5. Wolves. Their low growls rolled through the night like thunder under my skin. I froze. Every story I'd ever heard about the cursed woods of Arimo flooded my mind. Tales of spirits that walked on 4 legs, of beasts that smelled fear. I tried to stand, but the rope cut deeper. "Please," my voice trembled to the rhythm of my heartbeat. "Not now? Not my baby." The largest wolf stepped forward, fur bristling, saliva glinting on its fangs. It sniffed the air, then growled, the sound vibrating through the ground beneath me. I could almost taste its hunger. I shut my eyes and prayed. "If anyone, anything, can hear me, please don't let my child die here." For a moment, the world held its breath. Then, a bark. Sharp, fearless, defiant. A blur of light brown fur burst from the shadows. A red bandana flamed around its neck. The wolf turned, snarling, as the dog, smaller, but burning with fury, charged straight into its path. Teeth clashed. Snarls tore the night apart. Leaves scattered like frightened birds. The forest, once my graveyard, suddenly became an arena. I crawled backward, trembling, tears mixing with rain. "Please, please survive," I whispered, not sure if I meant him or me. When the howls finally faded, only one sound remained. The dog's panting, steady and alive. He limped toward me, eyes gleaming with something more human than most men possess, mercy. He sniffed the rope around my wrists, then began to bite. Each snap of the fiber was a heartbeat closer to freedom. When the last strand broke, I fell forward, arms around his neck, sobbing into his fur. He didn't flinch. He only pressed closer, warm and real in the cold night. "My guardian angel," I breathed. Thunder rolled in the distance. Somewhere beyond the trees, faint lights flickered. Maybe a village, maybe hope. I didn't know yet. All I knew was that this nameless dog had just given me back my life. And in that moment, soaked in rain and fear, I made a promise. If I survived this night, I would never forget the creature that saved me from the darkness, even if the world called him just a dog. They say you never really know someone until you see the way they look at you when they realize you're no longer useful. If I had learned that lesson sooner, maybe I would have seen the truth in Raymond's eyes long before the night he left me to die. My name is Lara Daniels, 26, a literature graduate from the University of New York. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, where the nights smell like rain and magnolia, and dreams are supposed to come true if you work hard enough. I used to believe that love was the kind of story you read in novels, tragic, beautiful, inevitable. When Raymond walked into my life, I thought I'd finally found my own fairy tale. It happened on a rainy Tuesday. I was working at a small public library downtown, the kind of place where time moved slow and dust floated like ghosts in the light. He walked in wearing a navy suit, hair slicked back, eyes sharp enough to cut through any doubt. He smiled and said, "You look like someone who still believes in happy endings." I laughed, nervous, curious. I didn't know that some smiles are just rehearsed lies waiting for a stage. Raymond Brooks came from money. His family owned Brooks Construction, one of the biggest development companies in the state. His father, Gregory Brooks, was the kind of man who wore power like cologne. His mother, Catherine, ran charity galas that cost more than most people's houses. When Raymond introduced me to them, I thought it was a good sign, until I shook their hands. His father's grip was cold and measured, like a man signing a deal he didn't believe in. His mother smiled, but her eyes scanned me the way rich women look at a price tag they can't justify paying. They didn't ask about my dreams, my work, or what kind of person I was. They asked who my parents were, what they owned, and whether my family was connected. Raymond brushed it off later. "Don't mind them, babe. They're old school." I believed him, because belief is cheaper than heartbreak. A few months later, when I told him I was pregnant, he froze. For 1 second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not joy, not surprise, but calculation. Then it vanished. He smiled, kissed my hand, and whispered, "We'll handle it together." The next morning, he proposed. We married in a small chapel just outside Charleston. Quiet, simple, elegant. No big wedding, no family crowd. Just a few friends, my sister, and his cousin who acted as best man. I thought Raymond wanted something private and romantic. I didn't realize it was because his parents refused to attend. That day, under the soft golden lights of the chapel, I looked into his eyes and saw everything I thought love was supposed to be. He slipped a ring on my finger and said, "Till death do us part." I thought it meant forever. To him, it was a timeline. The cracks appeared slowly. He started coming home late, smelling of perfume that wasn't mine. He became cold, impatient, picking fights over the smallest things. Dinner too salty, curtains too bright, my voice too soft. I told myself it was stress from work. I told myself love could fix it. But love can't fix someone who doesn't want to be saved. One evening, while organizing papers in his study, I found a folder tucked beneath some real estate contracts. Inside were property transfer documents, all in my name, but recently reassigned to Brooks Construction. The signature at the bottom was mine, except it wasn't. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He just smiled that cold smile and said, "You should have read the fine print before saying I do." My hands trembled. "You forged my name, Ray." He cut me off. "You wanted to be part of the Brooks family? Congratulations. Now you are, debts and all." He left the room before I could reply. That was the first night I slept on the couch, and the last night I believed in us. 2 days later, he came home early, flowers in hand, and guilt wiped from his face. "I've been a jerk," he said softly. "Let me make it up to you. Let's get away this weekend, just us. No phones, no stress." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. So I packed a small bag, kissed his cheek, and thought maybe forgiveness could be a second chance. We drove out of the city that Friday night, the sky bruised with storm clouds. The road wound through the Appalachian woods, dark and endless. He turned off the radio and hummed under his breath. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere peaceful," he said. His voice was calm, too calm. Hours later, he slowed to a stop on a deserted trail. No streetlights, no houses, just the hum of crickets and the whisper of wind. I looked around, confused. "Raymond, why are we?" That's when he pulled the rope from his coat. At first, I thought it was a joke, until he grabbed my wrists, until I felt the fibers cut into my skin, until I saw that cold, final look in his eyes. When he pushed me to the ground and walked away, the gravel burned my knees. The sound of his footsteps faded, replaced by the soft echo of my own heartbeat. And as his car disappeared into the trees, I realized the truth I had been too blind to see. Sometimes, the people who promise to protect you are the ones who lead you to the edge. That was the night the forest became my only witness. The night betrayal turned to survival. And somewhere in the darkness, a dog with a red bandana was about to rewrite the story I thought had already ended. The forest was breathing. That's the first thing I remember thinking after Raymond's car vanished into the dark. It wasn't just wind moving through the trees. It felt alive, like every leaf and shadow was watching, whispering, waiting. The rain had stopped, but the air was damp enough to cling to my skin. My wrists throbbed from the rope burns. The gown I once dreamed of walking down an aisle in was now torn and heavy with mud. Somewhere in the distance, thunder grumbled again, rolling low across the mountains. I tried to move. My legs felt like glass, shaking with every step. The forest floor was soft, covered in wet pine needles that muffled sound, except for my heartbeat. I stumbled toward the faint light I thought I saw earlier, a glow between the trees. But the more I walked, the darker it got. The howl started again, faint at first, carried by the wind. Then closer, louder. Wolves, or something worse. I froze. Every muscle in my body screamed run, but my feet stayed rooted. The bushes shifted. Eyes glinted in the dark, several pairs, moving closer. That's when the bark came again. Sharp, fierce, defiant. A blur of tan fur broke through the shadows, moving like lightning. The dog, the same one that had saved me earlier, lunged between me and the wolves, teeth bared, fur bristling. The biggest wolf charged, but the dog was faster. He leapt, tackling it sideways, snapping his jaws with a growl that echoed through the forest. The fight was chaos, snarls, whimpers, the crunch of teeth on flesh. I couldn't move. I could only watch. Finally, the wolves backed away, one by one, until their eyes vanished into the darkness. Silence returned. The dog stood in front of me, panting hard, one ear torn, fur streaked with dirt and blood. I dropped to my knees beside him. Hey, easy. My voice trembled as I reached out a shaking hand. He didn't pull away. He looked up at me, brown eyes steady, warm, human almost, and licked my fingers once. That's when I saw it. A red bandana around his neck, faded and frayed. Someone once loved him. Someone once owned him. What's your name? I whispered. Who left you out here? He just stared at me, tail wagging faintly, as if to say, that doesn't matter right now. He nudged my arm, then turned toward the trees and barked softly, like he was urging me to follow. We walked together through the forest. I didn't know where we were going. I just knew staying put meant death. The ground sloped downward into a ravine, where a creek shimmered in the moonlight. The dog led me carefully across fallen logs, stopping every few steps to make sure I was still behind him. Smart boy, I whispered. You saved me again. He wagged his tail once and kept moving. For a while, it felt like we were the only living souls in the world, two survivors bound by fate. But the forest wasn't done with us yet. As we moved deeper, the air grew colder. The trees thickened, swallowing the moonlight. Somewhere far ahead, I heard something, faint music, piano keys, a single, haunting melody drifting through the woods. I stopped. Do you hear that? I asked. The dog tilted his head, ears pricked. Then he growled low, uneasy. It wasn't music. It was an old wind chime, clanging softly from a cabin hidden among the trees. A small cabin, one window glowing with pale, flickering light. Hope fluttered in my chest. Someone's there. I started toward it, but the dog blocked my path, barking sharply. What? No, we need help. I tried to move around him, but he barked louder this time, stepping in front of me again. His fur stood on end. Something about the cabin terrified him. I looked closer. The glow inside wasn't steady like a lamp. It flickered like fire. And then, through the fog glass, I saw a movement. A silhouette. A man's silhouette. For a split second, I thought it was Raymond. My breath hitched. I ducked behind a tree, heart racing. But as the figure moved closer to the window, I saw it wasn't him. The man was older, maybe in his 50s, wearing a torn sheriff's jacket. His face was pale, eyes hollow. He was pacing, muttering to himself. On the table beside him was something that glinted, a gun. The dog growled again, softly this time, warning me to stay back. I should have listened. But desperation makes you deaf to danger. Hello. I called out, stepping closer. Please, I need help. The man froze. Slowly, he turned toward the window. His eyes widened when he saw me. Or maybe he saw the red gown, the dirt, the blood. He moved fast, grabbing the gun and opening the door. Who are you? He barked. My name's Lara. I was. Quiet. He stepped closer, gun aimed low but steady. His voice shook. You're not real. Not again. I'm real. I cried. Please, I just need. Stay back. His finger twitched near the trigger. They said you were gone. They said the bride was dead. My stomach dropped. What did you just say? The dog growled beside me, teeth flashing. The man's eyes darted between me and the dog. Get that thing away from me. Stop, I yelled. He won't hurt you. But the dog lunged before I could stop him, not at the man, but at his hand. The gun went off, echoing through the forest like thunder. The man screamed, stumbling backward as the weapon clattered to the floor. The dog barked wildly, positioning himself between us. Are you crazy? I shouted. We're not here to hurt you. The man's face twisted in fear and confusion. You shouldn't be here, he whispered. No one comes out of these woods. No one. Then he turned and bolted into the darkness, vanishing among the trees. I stood there, trembling, staring after him. The smell of gunpowder hung in the air. The dog whined softly and nudged my hand. I sank to the ground, shaking. What the hell is happening out here? The wind howled through the trees, carrying faint echoes of my own voice back to me. Distorted, distant, like the forest itself was answering. You shouldn't be here. I looked at the dog. His eyes reflected the moonlight, steady and sure. Whatever this place was, cursed, haunted, or something worse, I wasn't leaving without him. And as the wind chime clinked again in the distance, I realized the forest hadn't just taken me in by accident. It was waiting for me. The forest didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. After the man, the sheriff, or whatever he was, vanished into the trees, the woods seemed to exhale. The sound of rain returned, soft and steady, washing the gunpowder scent from the air. I sat by the old cabin's porch, shivering, my soaked gown clinging to my skin. The dog, my only friend now, stayed close, his head resting on my lap. Every time thunder cracked, he'd twitch but never move away. He was guarding me, even from silence. I looked at the door the man had left open. Inside, the cabin was small, barely more than a hunting shelter. A single lantern burned on the table, flickering shadows across the walls. The floor creaked as I stepped inside. There was dust everywhere, but not the kind that gathers from time. This dust had weight. It felt fresh, disturbed. On the wall, I saw something that made my breath catch. Pinned beside an old calendar were photos. Dozens of them. All of women in red dresses. Some were wedding pictures, some were newspaper clippings. A few were police reports. Missing bride found dead near Redstone Creek. Local woman disappears after wedding. Unknown female body identified by gown. And in the center of all of them, taped carefully to the wall, was a single headline. The Red Bride Curse. Myth or murder? I stepped closer, heart pounding. The ink had faded, but I could still read the byline. Written by Sheriff Miles Grant, 1998. So the man was a sheriff, or had been. And he wasn't crazy. He was haunted. The dog whimpered softly, his nose brushing one of the photographs. A young woman, smiling beside a man whose face looked eerily familiar. Raymond. My blood went cold. The photo was dated 5 years ago. The caption beneath it read, "Local businessman and fiancé found dead after wedding night accident. Investigation ongoing." But in the picture, the man beside her wasn't just Raymond. It was him exactly, same face, same scar near the chin. Except, the name on the photo wasn't Raymond Brooks. It was Aaron Reeves. I staggered back, gripping the edge of the table. No, that can't be. The dog barked sharply, snapping me out of my thoughts. He stood at the window, ears pricked. Outside, the forest moved, not the wind this time, but footsteps. Heavy, close. I blew out the lantern and crouched low. Through the cracked window, I saw flashlights, 2 of them, sweeping through the trees. Voices followed. She couldn't have gone far. Boss said no loose ends. I recognized one of the voices. It was Raymond. My heart stopped. He was supposed to be gone, arrested, dead, anything but here. But there he was, alive, walking through the forest like the devil himself had come back for me. I pressed a hand over my mouth to muffle my breathing. The dog stayed silent, crouched low beside me, muscles tense. "Check the cabin," Raymond ordered. My pulse thundered in my ears. There was no back door, no place to hide except a crawl space beneath the floorboards. I pulled the trapdoor open quietly and slid down, pulling the dog with me. The air down there was cold and damp, thick with the smell of rot, and something metallic, blood. I held my breath as footsteps entered the cabin above. Raymond's boots creaked on the wood, slow and deliberate. I could see his shadow through the cracks in the floorboards. Tall, sharp, searching. Then another voice. Boss, she's not here. Raymond laughed softly. That same smirk I used to love. Oh, she's here. Laura was always too stubborn to die quietly. My stomach turned. I pressed my hand against the dog's chest, feeling his heartbeat match mine. Fast, terrified, alive. After a few moments, the footsteps moved toward the door. Spread out, Raymond said. If she's still breathing, I want to watch it leave her. They left. I waited a full minute before moving. When I finally crawled out, my legs were shaking. I looked around. They hadn't taken anything. But the sheriff's papers, the photos, they were real. Raymond had done this before. He wasn't just a liar. He was a predator. The rain started again, harder this time. I turned to the dog. We have to move. He wagged his tail once, as if he already knew. We stepped into the storm. The air was cold enough to bite. The forest was darker now, thicker, heavier. It felt like it was closing in. Lightning flashed, and for an instant, I saw something gleam in the distance. A rusted car half buried in vines. We approached carefully. It was a black sedan, old but familiar. The license plate was barely visible, but the numbers matched the one in the newspaper photo, the accident car. Inside, the seats were torn. Dried blood crusted the steering wheel. A woman's shoe lay in the mud. And there, on the passenger seat, was a photo frame, cracked but intact. It showed the same woman in the red gown, holding the same dog. I gasped. You knew her, I whispered to him. You were her dog. He looked at me, eyes filled with something ancient, grief, loyalty, memory. He pawed at the car door softly, as if remembering. That's when I realized the truth. The dog hadn't just saved me. He'd been waiting, for years, to finish what he started. The curse wasn't a myth. The Red Bride wasn't a story. It was a pattern, and I was the next chapter. In the distance, a gunshot cracked the night. Then another. The dog growled, for standing up. Raymond was hunting again. I took one last look at the photo and whispered, not this time. Then I turned toward the sound, gripping the broken frame like a weapon, my gown clinging to me like a ghost of every woman who had died here before. And for the first time that night, I stopped running. Because now, I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the witness. The rain came harder, slicing through the forest like cold needles. Each drop hit the leaves with a whisper that sounded too much like words. I didn't know if it was the storm or the ghosts of the women who'd come before me. The dog and I moved through the darkness, following the faint outline of an old dirt trail. The mud sucked at my shoes. My gown dragged behind me like a shadow that didn't want to let go. Thunder cracked, so loud it felt like the sky was splitting open. But still, I could hear them. Raymond and his men. Their voices carried faintly on the wind. Fan out. She couldn't have gone far. Every flash of lightning painted the forest in white for a heartbeat. And then everything went black again. The dog kept close to my side, ears pinned back, alert. Every so often, he'd stop, sniff the air, and then push forward again. He was leading us somewhere, but I didn't know where, until I saw the shape ahead. A watchtower. It stood crooked and half-collapsed, built of old wood and metal, maybe from the days when this forest used to be part of a ranger station. At its base was a storage shack, barely standing but intact enough to give shelter. We rushed inside. The smell hit first, damp wood, mold, and rusted metal. It wasn't much, but it was safe. I sank against the wall, gasping for breath, my body shaking from cold and fear. The dog padded over to an old desk, sniffing at a dusty box on top. He barked once, short and sharp. What is it, boy? I opened the box. Inside were tapes. Dozens of them, labeled with white stickers. Red Bride, Case File 1. Case File 2. All the way up to Case File 9. The handwriting matched what I'd seen in the cabin. Sheriff Miles Grant had been here, too. I found a small battery recorder beside them. Miraculously, when I pressed play, it crackled to life. A man's voice, trembling but steady. This is Sheriff Grant. Day 43 of the investigation. The pattern is clear now. Each victim wore red. Each was married within the last month. Each was last seen near the old forest road. Whoever's behind this isn't human. Or maybe he's worse than human. Static. Then another voice, distant. A woman's scream, abruptly cut off. I froze. My pulse pounded in my ears. The tape clicked again. If anyone finds this, don't trust the man who calls himself Raymond Brooks. That's not his name. He changes it every few years. Always charming, always rich, always a bride in red. I stopped the tape. My hands shook. Raymond wasn't his real name. It was a mask, one of many. He'd done this before, over and over, in different states, under different names. And no one had ever stopped him. Until now. The dog whined softly, his eyes glinting in the dim light. He'd known it all along. Maybe not the man's name, but the smell, the presence. He'd seen it before. I ran my fingers through his damp fur. You lost her, didn't you? The woman before me. She was yours. He laid his head against my lap. I didn't need him to answer. A crack of wood split the silence. The door. Someone was outside. I turned off the recorder and crouched low. The dog growled quietly, muscles tense. Check in there, a voice said. Not Raymond's this time, one of his men. The doorknob rattled, then creaked open. Light from a flashlight swept across the room. I grabbed one of the metal rods from the floor and held my breath. The man stepped in, muttering, "Damn place gives me the creeps." The dog moved first, silent as wind. He lunged, teeth flashing, and clamped down on the man's arm. The flashlight dropped, spinning on the ground, flooding the room with frantic light. The man screamed and tried to shake him off, but I was already up. I swung the metal rod, hitting his wrist. The gun he held clattered away. He shoved me back, but the dog was faster, dragging him down again. He kicked out hard. The blow landed square on the dog's ribs. I screamed and swung again, harder this time. The man went down. He didn't move again. My hands trembled as I dropped the rod. Oh my God! The dog limped toward me, breathing hard. I knelt beside him, checking his side. He was bleeding, not badly, but enough to make me panic. No, no, stay with me, please. I tore a strip from my gown and pressed it against the wound. He whimpered softly, then licked my hand. You're gonna be okay, I whispered. I won't let you die here too. Outside, the rain had eased to a drizzle. I found a small medical kit in the shack, probably left behind by rangers, and used it to clean the wound. The dog watched me the whole time, eyes half closed, trusting. Then I heard a sound that froze me again, the crackle of a radio. It came from the top of the watchtower. I looked at the ladder, half broken, slick with rain. If it still worked, maybe I could call for help. Maybe. I climbed carefully, one rung at a time, the wood creaking under my weight. When I reached the top, I found an old ranger station, filled with cobwebs and dust, but the radio was there. It still had power. I pressed the mic button. Hello? Is anyone there? Please, this is Laura Daniels. I've been attacked. I'm in the redstone forest near the old watchtower. Please, someone. Static. Then a voice. Weak, distant, but clear. Laura? My heart stopped. It was Raymond. You sound scared, sweetheart. Don't be. You were always meant to come here. I dropped the mic. My hands were shaking too hard to move. You found Grant's tapes, didn't you? Raymond's voice grew clearer, sharper. That old fool thought he could stop me. Just like you do now. But you'll end up the same way she did. I grabbed the mic, anger burning through the fear. You're a monster. He laughed, low, cold, amused. No, darling. I'm the man you married. The radio went dead. I stood there in the rain, lightning flashing over the trees below, and for the first time since that night began, I felt something stronger than fear, rage. He thought I'd run. He thought I'd hide. But I wasn't running anymore. The dog barked below, calling for me. I climbed down and knelt beside him. Time to finish this, I whispered. For her. For all of them. He wagged his tail once, a soldier ready for war. The forest was no longer just a place of fear. It was a graveyard waiting for justice. And I was done being buried. The storm had moved past, but thunder still rolled far away like drums warning that something terrible was coming back. The forest was soaked. Mist rose from the ground and wrapped around the trees like breath in cold air. Every sound was louder in the aftermath, the drip of rain, the snap of branches, the echo of my own heartbeat. We were done running. The dog. I had started calling him Ranger, limped beside me as we moved down the trail toward the valley. Somewhere ahead, beneath the low growl of thunder, I could hear a motor rumbling. Headlights flashed once through the fog, cutting pale streaks of white against the trees. He was waiting. I crouched behind a fallen log and peered through the mist. Raymond stood by his truck, a shotgun in one hand, a flashlight in the other. His shirt was soaked through, plastered to his skin, his hair hanging wet across his forehead. He looked less like a man and more like something the storm had left behind. Raw, unhinged, hollow-eyed. "Lara," he called into the trees. His voice echoed off the trunks. "Come out, sweetheart. You don't have to make this ugly." I almost laughed. Ugly? He'd already painted the world ugly in blood and lies. Ranger growled softly beside me, hackles raised. I whispered, "Not yet. Wait." Raymond paced in slow circles, scanning the woods with the flashlight. "I know you found the tapes," he said. "The sheriff tried the same thing, thinking he could expose me." He paused and chuckled under his breath. "Grant was stubborn. I liked him. Shame about what happened." My chest tightened. "You killed him." He stopped moving. "Killed? No. The forest did. I just helped it decide." The way he said it, calm, almost proud, made my stomach turn. He raised the shotgun and fired into the air. The blast split the silence, scattering crows into the sky. "Every time you hide, I shoot again," he shouted. "And every time I do, someone's ghost wakes up. You really want that blood on your conscience?" I clenched my fists, rage burning through fear. "You want ghosts, Raymond? You've made enough of them." I stood up. The beam of his flashlight froze when it found me. His face twisted into something between relief and fury. "There you are." I stepped out from behind the tree, rain plastering the gown to my body, the red now almost black with mud. "You could have just left me alone," I said. "But you couldn't, could you? You needed one more name on your list." He tilted his head. "You talk like you understand me." "I do," I said quietly. "You kill women who love you because you hate what you see in them, the part of you that can still feel." His smile died. He raised the shotgun. Ranger barked and leapt forward, drawing his attention. The first shot exploded through the mist, tearing bark from a nearby tree. "Run!" I screamed. But Ranger didn't run. He charged. The second shot went off. This time, a cry followed. I dropped to the ground beside him as the shotgun clattered away. Ranger whimpered, his shoulder bleeding. "No, no, stay with me." I pressed my hand against the wound, tears mixing with the rain. Raymond kicked the gun closer to himself and laughed. "Dogs. Always trying to be heroes." He cocked the shotgun again. "Move, Lara." Something inside me broke. I picked up a rock and hurled it at his face. It hit him square on the cheekbone. Not enough to stop him, but enough to make him stumble. I dove at the shotgun, grabbing the barrel as it fired again into the ground. The recoil knocked us both into the mud. We wrestled for the weapon, his hand crushing mine, the muzzle twisting between us. "Let go," he shouted. "Never again." I screamed back. The world became a blur of rain and fury. Then Ranger, wounded but unbroken, lunged one last time, clamping his jaws around Raymond's arm. The gun fired. Raymond screamed. The shot tore through his shoulder, and the weapon flew into the bushes. He shoved the dog away and staggered backward, clutching the wound. His face twisted with hate. "You think this changes anything?" he spat. "They'll never believe you. They never do." "Maybe not," I said, standing over him. "But they'll find you here. And they'll find them too." He blinked, confused, until he saw what I was pointing at. Behind him, the storm had unearthed a shape in the mud, part of a red gown, tangled with bones. One of his brides. He froze. The color drained from his face. For the first time, Raymond looked afraid. "You buried them here," I said. "And now the forest wants them back." Lightning cracked, lighting up his terrified expression for one perfect, damning second. He turned to run. Ranger growled and lunged again, dragging him down by the leg. Raymond swung wildly, grabbing a branch, hitting the dog again and again. "Stop it!" I screamed, diving forward. Just as another flash of lightning split the sky, a tree nearby shuddered, and with a deafening crack, it collapsed. Raymond barely had time to look up before the trunk came down. The sound echoed through the valley, sharp and final. Then there was silence. Only the rain. Only the smell of wet earth and smoke. I crawled to Ranger's side. He was breathing, shallow but steady. The tree pinned Raymond's legs, blood mixing with mud, his eyes open but dazed. He coughed once, looking up at me. "Lara," he whispered. "Help me." I stared down at him. The man who'd killed for pleasure, who'd almost taken everything from me. "You had your chance," I said softly. "Now it's theirs." I turned away. Ranger limped beside me as we walked through the rain, leaving Raymond beneath the fallen tree. His voice followed, weak and broken. "Lara, don't leave me. Please." But the forest swallowed his words. We didn't stop until dawn. The rain had ended, and the forest smelled of wet leaves and smoke. Ranger stumbled once, exhausted, and I lifted his head gently onto my lap. "You did it," I whispered. "You saved me." He licked my hand, eyes half closed. For a long moment, the world was quiet, peaceful, almost holy. And then, in the distance, a single gunshot echoed. Not from Raymond. From somewhere deeper in the woods. The forest wasn't done yet. The sunrise never came easily to Redstone Forest. Even when morning broke, it crept in slow, like light was afraid to touch the ground where too much blood had been spilled. I thought it was over. I thought the nightmare had ended with the sound of that falling tree. But as I sat beneath the hollow oak, holding Ranger's head in my lap, I realized the forest was too quiet. No birds, no wind, no insects, just silence, heavy and expectant. Ranger stirred, eyes half open. He tried to stand, but his wound bled through the makeshift bandage. "Easy," I whispered. "You've done enough, hero." He pressed his nose against my hand, as if disagreeing. That's when I heard it, the low hum of a generator. Faint, coming from somewhere deeper in the woods. "Someone else is here," I murmured. Ranger barked softly once, confirmation. We followed the sound. The trail twisted downhill, leading to a clearing I hadn't seen before. There, hidden behind a curtain of vines, stood a metal bunker door, rusted but intact. A sheriff's badge was carved into the frame, Grant County Police Department. My breath caught. Sheriff Miles Grant. Ranger pawed the ground, whining softly. The door was slightly open. We stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and oil. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, powered by the faint hum of the old generator. Inside, the bunker looked like a forgotten command post. Filing cabinets, radio equipment, boxes of evidence stacked in rows. On the far wall hung a corkboard filled with photos, maps, and newspaper clippings. Red strings crisscrossed between faces and locations like veins of a diseased heart. Every string led to one name written in bold ink across the center. Aaron Reeves, Raymond's real identity. And below it, status, still active. I felt my stomach twist. The sheriff had known who Raymond was, and had died trying to prove it. A folder lay open on the desk. Inside was a letter, yellowed with age, addressed to whoever survives. "If you're reading this, it means I failed to stop him. He takes brides because he believes the forest demands sacrifice. Women dressed in red, symbols of love and blood. The dog you found, I trained him. His name is Ranger. He's been guarding this forest since the day I died. He won't leave until the last bride is free." I pressed a trembling hand over my mouth. Ranger looked up at me, his eyes deep and knowing. You've been here since then?" I whispered. "Guarding this place for 20 years. He barked once, short, proud. Tears blurred my vision. "You good, old soul." I turned back to the wall of photos, until I noticed something that made my blood run cold. One photo had been added recently. The paper was newer, cleaner, and it wasn't pinned by the sheriff. It was stapled roughly over another picture. It was me, and scrawled beneath it, in Raymond's handwriting. "Bride number 10, complete." The room swayed. If this was file number 10, then the gunshot I heard earlier hadn't been random. Someone else was still alive out there, or something else had moved. I heard footsteps. "Always were too curious for your own good," a voice said. I spun around, and my heart stopped. Raymond. He was pale, limping, blood soaking his torn shirt, but alive. The tree hadn't killed him. The forest had only slowed him down. He smirked. "You think a little storm can bury me? I've survived worse." He lifted his pistol, the same one I'd heard earlier. "You should have run, Laura." I backed away slowly, grabbing the edge of the desk. "How are you even standing?" "The forest doesn't kill me," he said. "It needs me. I feed it." His voice cracked into a half-mad laugh. "Every bride, every drop of blood, it's all part of the balance." "You're insane." "Maybe." He raised the gun. "But you're still mine." Before he could fire, Ranger growled, low, thunderous, and leapt. The shot went off. A flash, a sound that split the air. The bullet struck Ranger mid-leap. "No!" I screamed. He hit Raymond full force anyway, driving him backward into the evidence rack. The shelf toppled, sending papers and metal clattering to the floor. The gun slid out of Raymond's reach. I ran forward, grabbed the weapon, and aimed it straight at him. He laughed weakly. "You won't do it." I took a step closer. "You don't know me anymore." He sneered. You're just another story. Then let's give it an ending. I pulled the trigger. The echo thundered through the bunker like the forest itself was exhaling. Raymond collapsed, eyes open but empty. The monster finally fell silent. I dropped the gun and fell to my knees beside Ranger. He was bleeding badly, his breathing shallow. No, no, please don't leave me, I whispered, pressing my hands against the wound. You can't die now. Not after everything. He looked at me once, calm, proud, then rested his head against my arm. His breathing slowed. Ranger, I choked out. Stay. But he didn't. He was gone. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. The bunker faded around me, the storm outside turning into a dull hum. Then, through the radio static on the desk, I heard a familiar voice, faint, broken, but unmistakable. Good job, boy. It was the sheriff. Or maybe it was the forest. Maybe they were the same now. The lights flickered, then went out. I buried Ranger just outside the bunker, beneath the oldest pine tree I could find. The sun had finally broken through the clouds, turning the wet ground gold. I found a piece of metal and carved his name into it. Ranger, the guardian of the brides. As I stood there, the wind moved through the branches above, carrying the faint sound of barking, distant, gentle, eternal. I smiled through the tears. Rest now, hero. The forest is safe. Then I walked toward the light beyond the trees, the first rays of morning finally touching my face. Behind me, the forest whispered a single word that only my heart could hear. Freedom. By the time I found the road, the morning sun had burned away most of the fog, but the forest still clung to me. Its smell of pine and smoke and rain soaked into my hair and skin. My feet ached, my gown hung in ribbons, and dried blood streaked both my hands. Each step toward the open field felt like walking out of a nightmare I wasn't sure had really ended. A low hum grew in the distance, then sirens. Blue and red lights flickered through the trees like restless fireflies. I wanted to wave, to shout, but all that came out was a hoarse whisper. Over here. Two deputies ran toward me, flashlights bouncing. One of them froze, eyes wide. Jesus Christ, ma'am, don't move. Are you injured? I nodded numbly. He's dead, I said. Down in the bunker. And the dog. Please take care of him. They exchanged glances, the kind of look cops share when a story sounds impossible, and one called over his radio. Within minutes, the clearing was crowded. Uniforms, paramedics, state troopers. Hands guided me toward an ambulance. Voices layering over each other. Pulses good. Get her a blanket. Where's the shooter? I didn't answer. I couldn't. My eyes kept drifting back toward the tree lean, half expecting to see Ranger trotting out, bandana fluttering in the breeze. 8-pointed star at the hospital. White walls. Antiseptic. The slow beeping of machines that reminded me I was still alive. Detective Reed, a tall woman with gray eyes and a voice soft enough to make you tell the truth, sat across from my bed. She'd already seen the bunker. They'd confirmed the remains of multiple women and a man matching Raymond's description. Ms. Daniels, she said gently, you've been through hell. But what you did out there, it stopped him. Probably saved more lives than you'll ever know. I stared at the 4 dripping beside me. He'd been doing it for years. You'll find their names on the files down there. She nodded. We did. There was also a note from Sheriff Grant. She paused. You found the dog? My throat tightened. He found me. Reed's eyes softened. We'll see that he gets a proper burial. You have my word. I smiled weakly. He already has one. 8-pointed star, 2 weeks later. News vans lined the highway entrance to Redstone Forest. The story had spread across every network. The abandoned bride killer exposed. But the headlines weren't what mattered. People weren't talking about the monster anymore. They were talking about the dog. Hero dog dies saving woman from serial killer. The guardian of the brides. A memorial formed at the edge of the forest. Flowers, candles, little red bandanas tied around the fence posts. Kids left drawings of a golden brown dog with wings. Someone spray-painted a mural on the Ranger Tower. Ranger standing tall beneath the words some angels don't wear halos. I visited quietly one evening, dressed in a borrowed coat, hood pulled low. The wind was cold, carrying the scent of pine needles and wet earth. I knelt beside his grave and traced the metal plaque with my fingers. Hey boy, I whispered. They know your name now. A single bark echoed far off in the woods. Maybe it was another stray. Maybe it wasn't. 8-pointed star later that night. I couldn't sleep. The nightmares came in flashes, rope around my wrists, the gleam of Raymond's smile. But they ended the same way, with Ranger standing between me and the dark. So I began to write. Page after page spilled out, the weddings, the betrayal, the forest, the final night. I called the manuscript The Abandoned Bride, not because it was catchy, but because I wanted people to remember what it truly meant, that even in abandonment, courage can still find you. When the last sentence was done, I placed a photo of Ranger on the title page and whispered, "You get half the credit." The wind outside rattled the window once, gentle as a wagging tail. 8-pointed star, epilogue moment. A month later, a letter arrived from Detective Reed. Inside was a single picture, Ranger's red bandana, cleaned and folded, tied around a new puppy at the county shelter. A note beneath it read, "He's got your dog's eyes. Thought you might like to meet him." I laughed and cried all at once. Maybe the forest was still watching, still choosing its guardians. I looked out at the horizon where redstone forest lay in the distance, sunlight threading through the trees like forgiveness. "Guess the story isn't over," I said. And somewhere beyond the hills, I swear I heard a bark carried on the wind, soft, brave, and free. It's been 6 months since the forest. 6 months since thunder sounded like screams, and the scent of pine reminded me of blood. People ask me how I sleep now. Most nights, I tell them I'm fine. Some nights, that's even true. When I close my eyes, I still see flashes, mud, rope, the barrel of Raymond's gun. But lately, another image has started to appear, a tail wagging through the mist, a soft bark cutting through fear. Ranger. That's how I know I'm healing. Not because the memories are gone, but because the good ones finally stand tall enough to meet the bad. I moved out of the city a few months after everything. The apartment in Charleston felt too quiet, too clean, too human. I needed something that breathed. So I found a small farmhouse on the edge of Savannah. 1 floor, a wide porch, and woods behind it that smell like rain but hold no ghosts. There's a stray dog that wanders up sometimes. Thin, scrappy, the color of old honey. He never stays long. Just sits on the porch steps and watches me write, like he's checking on me. I started calling him Echo. Every time he leaves, I whisper, "Tell Ranger I'm okay." Maybe it's crazy. Maybe it's prayer. Maybe those two things are the same. Writing saved me in ways therapy couldn't. The book I started in that hospital room, The Abandoned Bride, became more than a survival story. It became a promise. That pain wouldn't get the last word. Publishers called it gripping, harrowing, raw. They used big words for something simple. All I really did was tell the truth. And the truth is this. Monsters aren't only found in dark forests. Sometimes they wear rings, whisper vows, smile for photographs. But so do angels, and sometimes, angels have paws. Detective Reed still calls once in a while. She says the Redstone site is being cleaned up, turned into a memorial park. They're naming the main trail after Ranger. Ranger's path. When she told me, I couldn't speak for a minute. I just pressed the phone to my chest and cried. He deserves that path. He earned every step of it. People leave red flowers there now. Kids tie ribbons to the trees. And sometimes, when the wind moves through the branches, they say it sounds like barking. Maybe that's legend. Maybe it's proof that love doesn't rot. It roots. The press still sends interview requests. They want to know how it felt to kill the man who tried to kill me. But that's never the story I want to tell. The story I tell is about what came after. The first morning I woke up and didn't feel afraid to look in a mirror. The first time I walked into the woods and felt peace instead of panic. The first laugh that didn't sound borrowed. Healing isn't a finish line. It's a slow, stubborn choice you make every sunrise. I keep Ranger's bandana folded on my desk. Some days I drape it over the back of my chair when I write. The fabric's frayed, but the red hasn't faded much. It reminds me that courage doesn't have to look new to still be strong. When people read my book, they send letters. One woman wrote, "I lost my husband to violence too, and your story reminded me that loyalty still exists in this world. Thank you for reminding me to believe again." I pinned her letter on my wall next to Ranger's photo. Every time I want to stop writing, I look at it. Sometimes, late at night, thunder rolls in from the coast. The first rumble always makes my heart race. But then I light a candle, open the window, and let the rain fall. Because storms don't scare me anymore. Storms remind me I survived one. I think about Sheriff Grant too. The town renamed the old ranger station in his honor. His daughter wrote to me once, saying she was a little girl when he disappeared, and for years she believed he'd abandoned her. Now she knows he died trying to save lives. She said, "Thank you for giving me my father back." That letter sits beside the others. It keeps me grounded. Reminds me that even the smallest act of truth-telling can rescue someone you'll never meet. As I finish this chapter of my life, I realize stories don't end the way we think they should. There's no perfect closure, no neat ribbon tying everything together. There's just gratitude and the quiet knowing that something greater than us was watching all along. Every morning, I step outside with a cup of coffee and whisper, "Good morning, Ranger." Sometimes a breeze stirs the porch swing in reply. That's enough. I've learned that surviving doesn't mean forgetting. It means carrying what saved you into whatever comes next. And that's what I'll do. For him. For me. For every woman who ever had to find her way out of the dark.